I've explained over and over again the corruption of the divide and rule propaganda matrix or the state superstructure. So with that banked, I want to go on to discuss good things that could happen, healthy things that could happen if we lived in a different world. I don't think that means I'll be going back onto that propaganda matrix stuff, except at the end when I play an excellent American NYC politician, AOC. She goes by abbreviation nicknames, Alexandra Cortez. Anyway, I'll play her on. I'll be playing her on within the context of her discussing UAP. But the main point will be about it is how she sees the corruption of the spending that goes into defence contractors, while at the same time the political class says that America is unable to afford universal health care. She explains just how much money goes into the military industrial complex. She knows the figures, I don't, so I'm going to play her, and she's just so good. She's also for universality, which will balance through basic income, and of course universal healthcare is mentioned there. So she's basically a democratic socialist, but from according to ability to which according to their needs. I mix the two, merit and equality, because just the way the world is. Anyway, now on to me though. I think the market is sacrosanct, right? Because it distributes goods over a wide area. But I think also that the access to the market should be sacrosanct. It shouldn't be dependent on your genetics or your upbringing or whether you were surrounded in books. So, for example, I remember when I was note-taking for disabled student, it was English literature note-taking. Oh, it was boring, I think. I thought, but nevertheless, I remember the tutor always said, and she's got in the position she has as an English lit tutor because she was surrounded in books as a child and just left to, devour them herself. Now, it's like if you're surrounded in money, you get to be confident in that kind of world. You're surrounded by books. It's not surprising she becomes an English literature tutor. Now, take all them books away from her as a kid, and she was born into a struggling family. She'd be the first to admit, she was the first to admit, how she got to her position. So I just think that is so obvious. Anyway, and universal basic income doesn't give people skills, maybe so much. It gives people that right to not be impoverished at all. Anything bonus that comes from it, such as now they can maybe set up a business or something, or now they can have more freedom and control over whether they work for this because they work continuing their employment because they like their job, or they want to pull away from it because they've got problems at work. There's plenty of bonuses that add to it, but the main thing is that they're just not born into absolute poverty and having to stay there forever. You see, politicians always talk about destroying poverty, but never do, because the only way you can do that is by getting money to people. It's like saying we're always talking about playing football, but we always turn up at the park without a ball. It's the same as that. So they should really say they're against destroying poverty. They should say they're for poverty. They would be telling the truth then, but they won't do that. So the very way they go about their politics is a lie. Well, it's not with AOC, we'll get to later, but it is with a lot of them. Now, the UBI I think it should be like something like, I don't. I'm tempted to say 50% of average income, but there's other things. There's other things that would maybe make it less than that. But when the other things are added in, it should be 50% of average income, something like that. I've not got a fetish for a figure, so but without using figures at all, it could just be impoverished level, couldn't it? So I'm using the figure because that's how the best social democracies work. Obviously, that's not us, but Scandinavian models often like a percentage of average income. So I haven't got a fetish for 50%, but it has to be something like that. So, for example, say we return student grants, then why would the basic income wouldn't have to be 50% for them, would it? Or if you're having housing benefit, or pensions and stuff. So, universal credit, does it probably replaces universal credit, which isn't universal, by the way, it's means tested. But what I'm saying is no one should be, just left penniless. So, like, if it's 50% of average income, the minimum income guarantee, that would really help, wouldn't it? That would really be something. And the arguments that America used today against universal healthcare, you see in Britain against universal basic income, or the arguments you see against any help for the poor, such as Greta University, you saw in the Victorian era. Ironically, the Victorians got the ball rolling by having more and more people going to school age 4 to 16. That without that, we've never got to where we are now. We're undermining the Victorians' own values. And we'd have so as well as UBI, I want to bring in things such as maybe like free or low cost housing, because that's a right as well. We say that education's a right and healthcare's a right, and then suddenly housing is not. I mean, so that brings in the question about housing benefit. We wouldn't need that if a lot of it was just free anyway. And then if we got student grants back, we could maximise the amount of people who would go to university. That would be an opportunity policy, a merit policy, and an equal policy, an equality policy. But at the end of the day, it has to getting rid of income poverty. It has bonuses on top of that. I understand that, but it's something that we should do within itself. That just stands alone as something that should be done. It just should. It's just something we have people who went without healthcare, so we brought in free healthcare. We have people with no education opportunity, so we bring in free education. I just think it's the same principle as that. People with a lack of money, so we bring in free money. And it would be seen in the future as in that same class of having a right to this sort of thing. And it all ties in with being pro mental health, because I think those who oppose these policies but simultaneously say they're pro mental health, that's again like saying you're pro football without bringing the football to the park. You know what I mean? It's like you can't be. You can't be. I admit there's other stuff to do with mental health that isn't to do with income deprivation. There's trauma from accidents you can have, which would happen even if you're a billionaire. So that's got nothing to do with deprivation. But these things aren't in competition. Both are true. You get people in deprivation, and you get people who've had an accident, even if they're well off, and both are traumatized in a sense. You both get suicide. I mean, I'm not saying everyone who has an accident has suicidal thoughts, and I'm not saying everyone who is deprived has suicidal thoughts, but they're common in both categories. So you could end up in the same place in your head, in other words. Prolonged poverty kind of like sort of like erodes the mind's health. I think something like an accident immediately kills it off. So yeah, not like I said, they're not in competition. Both are true. And the it's a complicated issue, and you have to get into depth in whether trauma, how that can be tackled so these things don't happen in the first place. But with poverty, it's the deliberate choice of a policy. It's a hangover from the Victorian era in some people's heads in the brainwash. I don't want to get back into the propaganda matrix, but you have to go there and understand it. And another thing I've never understood, and I studied political ideology and were more successful on that than anything else I've studied, including psychology, right? And yet I've never, ever, ever understood what the super rich are worried about. I honestly don't have a clue, because they've already got it made, and they're not going to have all their money confiscated. So I don't get it. I don't get it. I just don't. That's it. Simple as that. So they exaggerate. They say stuff like people like us are against their way of life while we're trying to become well off. I don't understand. Could it be that they really are just so petty about and being taxed a bit? Because I would love to be in their position and I wouldn't complain. I don't understand. Not really. Their worldview seems to be to keep the poor down so they have an ego trip of power. That's how it looks. We've never properly explained that. Of course. I don't think most of them are like that. I don't think that sort of worldview of vast inequality and poverty is that popular. But it's been successful enough, hasn't it? So that gets back to the propaganda matrix, so we won't go there. My politics is that the market distributes goods effectively, and it's sacrosanct as any of the left stuff I say, and that when you see social democracies, if you walked around Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Norway, it would seem much the same as going around Britain and America, because it's the consumerism free market economy. But what's different is that they care for their citizens more, to make sure that everyone's included. So, for example, the poor are looked after so well in these Scandinavian countries that they've got a vested interest to not replace their existing system with universal basic income, because they're already looked after, you see. This is why you see the polls in America, Canada and Britain showing higher support for UBI than they do in Scandinavia, because there's more desperation in nations that have never really given a crap, or pretend to give a crap but don't. Whereas they really do in Scandinavia care about all of their citizens. The Nordic model is famous for being social democratic. So all their parties really are social democratic because you can't really take over there and smash up the system. I'm on the far left of social democracy. I can't be called a commie or anything, because I'm for the market economy, but that's just to distribute goods, because I've never seen anything wrong with the market on that. The worst I ever saw, it wasn't its fault. It was when there was the COVID thing and people were hoarding. That was a weird thing with people But that was a one-off. There's obviously a little bit of a demand problem at the bottom, but that's not to do with distribution of goods. It's just that because people are kept impoverished, they don't have access to the market. So some businesses probably go bust because of that. It needs fixing. So capitalist part of market capitalism that I'm not keen on, because that's usually associated with the distribution of income being vastly unequal when people say you pro-capitalism. So like, I'd smash the whole thing, not the market, everything else. There ought to be the biggest redistribution of income Britain's ever had. We'd even maybe go further than 1945. That would be fantastic, wouldn't it? But the redistribution wouldn't be from the middle class to the working class. It'd be from things like billionaire AI tech companies, which are going to be absolutely booming soon. So they'll still be fine. And it'll be from them, windfall taxes and stuff like that, or maybe permanent taxes because of UBI itself. And inflation would be factored in. It would be best done by the more the economic decline happens because of the AI revolution, the more the money replaces money that's gone out. But you can't stop inflation 100% if you're trying to do something that's positive for the long run. But it can be limited. So, for example, say someone who agrees with UBI says that people should be getting this X amount. The value of it might be a bit less because inflation snips it. But unless you have something like 1929, 1930s level inflation, there's not going to be much of a problem, and that can be confessed. If you give someone £200 and inflation snips away £23 of it, that's a lot. They're still better off, and we still prefer the 177 than nothing. So I only think that needs to be checked. Oh, someone's coming upstairs. So I was put to me off. Anyway, and also if you bought UBI and you wouldn't bring it all in one go, that would be crazy. I mean, we should have prepared for this before now, though, because the longer you delay starting, the more you let the AI apocalypse hit hard, and the more then you're under pressure to rush it. When if you rush it, you will cause inflation. So it's naive that we take so long because we end up with a more inflationary UBI. It's ironic that, because the sort of people who block it happening are the ones who would cause the inflation for me. Because people would be, if you just wait till it starts tearing through the middle class professions, and the middle class aren't going to say do this slowly. So I think it's always better to budget for a rainy day and get started quickly rather than wait for the torrential rain to destroy everyone's houses and then to say let's fix it now. But that's not how it works. Seems that we're told that we must wait until the AI causes the smash and then we do something about it. Okay, unless it's Japan where they're looking ahead. Like I said, this is all pro mental health. You can't be pro mental health if you just leave everything to rot. And Britain is one of the worst modern nations on earth for not looking after its people, but America is worse. America have done, and now let's, with that thought in mind about America, let's play this brilliant politician from America. She's fantastic. This is her talking about UBI, but she brings in universal health care and the stupid excuse that American political class refused to bring it in And she says why. She relates that to the amount of money going to defence contractors, and she knows the figures, so play her. I'm not sure at what point she says that, but it's 11 minutes 40 seconds long.
Discussion, just stating the obvious, which is that people don't trust the government. And why would you? I mean, a lot of the budget is like 5 defense contractors in the country asking for $1 trillion. So, you know, when you don't have universal health care, but you spend $800 billion a year that can't pass an audit, I don't trust it either. That's why I sit on the oversight committee. But all that is to say, whatever I say, I'm aware that there are going to be people probably fighting over it, or deciding to trust it, deciding not to trust it. But that's just the general disclaimer that I'll start. Now, secondly, one of the questions that I am seeing most often is, why now? Why this? Why is it happening right now? And I think there's a lot of different factors. But I can't ignore the first part, which is that there are political reasons. Republicans were not majority. This is not my opinion, but Republicans are not a majority, and that is much deeper than just there are more Republican votes than there are Democratic votes. Whoever has a majority party controls who's in charge of the hearings, they control what goes to the floor, what gets voted on, the speaker, the majority party, etc. And the story of the Republicans in the last 6 months has been that they have pretty much infighting, and they haven't been able to accomplish much. In fact, we just went home early because they couldn't finish the agricultural bill, which creates a window of opportunity, actually. And all of that intra-party fighting kind of slows down the legislative process even more, because if the party in control really can't agree on things like agriculture and healthcare and things like that, then the piece of what you normally have in the zone kind of breaks to a halt. You can't really have hearings as many hearings on the normal stuff. So we're getting increasingly hearings about weird stuff, especially on the oversight committee. So this committee hearing was on the National Security Subcommittee, and that created a window of opportunity to push through a UAP hearing. Additionally, there's been some bipartisan efforts around corporate disclosure that are starting to take shape. Additionally, another reason why this is happening right now is that this is a story of organizing. I don't know what to tell you. People may want to be cynical about that, but truly, there are a lot of people in this country who are very interested in this topic, and there has been increasing pressure and organizing that transcends party lines, and that has resulted in the inclusion of several UAP disclosure requirements that Congress included in past defense authorizations. And so there has been a task force that was mandated by Congress in recent years, and there's legislation this year. And there have also been mandated disclosure that has really been the first of its kind in a long time, which is why that mandated public and congressional reporting results in more. I don't want to die, so I had to move. Anyways, so the other question I'm getting asked a lot is, what do you think? And if I just put on my investigator hat, which is the hat that we all put on the Oversight Committee, it is part of Article 2 responsibilities under the Constitution. Witness testimony is important. You cannot rely on witness testimony alone, but it is very often a helpful starting point, because it is completely different when a person decides to say something to the media or say something in public versus what they say under oath. When a person is willing to go under oath and risk perjuring themselves or risk being held in contempt of Congress, it's a very serious thing. And so you have to take the things that they say seriously. That being said, mistaken. Now, it doesn't mean that they were lying. Could have been truly what they thought was the truth. I'm not speaking to any of the witnesses that we heard from this week. I'm just talking about investigative principles. That being said, taking something under oath, and if someone levies a very serious accusation that potentially has to do with wrongdoing or something going on, it can be grounds to investigate further, which is why again, it's very important to listen to the specific word that a person chooses to say under oath versus the words that they use when not under oath, right? You have to pay attention to specifically what is said under oath. So anyways, what do I think? Do I think UAPs are real? Are UAPs real? UAP stands for Unidentified Anomalous or Aerial Phenomenon. But people say anomalous because now it's water or air. Do I believe that there are phenomena that have been identified by pilots, either commercial, military, etc., that have gone unidentified? Sure, yeah. I think so. I think that's fair to say. We heard from some pretty credible witnesses. One is a commander who has verified video that is unidentified. So, by definition, the phenomena that are unidentified are not the UAP incidents, which have been identified. But there are some that have been unidentified. Now, do I think those are aliens? That's a different question. Here's what I do think. I do think there's something going on. I do think that, and I know that in the past, we've dragged defense contractors before the committee, and I have questioned them. I'll see if I can put in a link or something. But I have questioned them, and I have found, and we have found as a committee, defense contractors hiding things. And one line of questioning that I have also part of another investigation on the committee resulted in tens of millions of dollars, I think it was like $16 million, just from one smaller contractor alone. Over $10 million getting returned to the public because of corrupt practices. So we have truly documented incidents of defense contractors being treated. And if you ask me, that was one of the themes that at least I found to be sticking out a lot during the hearing, was the presence of defense contractors. One of the witnesses called out Boeing as a contractor specifically. Another witness specifically called out abuse of the IRAP program and misuse of the appropriations process, which is basically Congress says we spent this money on this thing for this purpose, and sometimes people shift that money around in a way that's not exactly authorized. That to me is actionable. That to me is a thread that can be pulled. The other stuff is harder, right? But if there's something being covered, we should look. Moreover, what I also think is that I cut to the core question of our democracy. We spent $800 billion on our defense budget alone. And mind you, that's not all the money that we're spending on military or defense, etc. Like, that's the low number because we have sub-budgets and other things, etc. It adds up. Like $800 billion that we spend on defense. Do you know how much of our $800 billion in defense goes to defense contractors, private companies, of our whole defense budget? 50%, almost $400 billion goes to private companies out of the U.S. defense budget, to companies like Boeing and Lockheed Martin and all of that. And how many audits has the Pentagon done? 0. And there have been people that have been trying to draw attention to this. I'll link one below, it was on 60 Minutes, trying to sound the alarm about the corruption and greed of the defense contractor industry in this country. And so, you know, do I think something is going on? Yes, there were specific defense contractors named, there were programs that were being abused that were named, and do I think there are grounds to pull on that thread further? Yes, I do. And I think that it should be pulled further. I know what it is? No. Am I going to be an hater? No. But I'm always interested in corruption and cover-ups. Like, that's my thing. Other people are more specialized in the other parts. So those are my thoughts on it. And for everyone who might say, whatever, this doesn't matter, we need to worry about rent and healthcare. First of all, I hear you. Second of all, I actually think these issues are connected because one of the reasons we're always told by the richest country, one of the excuses that we're told by the richest country on earth can't have universal health care is because we can't afford it. Right? Well, we know that's a crock of nonsense because we're spending trillions of dollars over years on military budgets that can't pass an audit, and half of which go to a bunch of private companies that are price gouging the public and engaged in corrupt activity. We know that that's true because we've uncovered it in the past, and we need to be spending those public funds on education, infrastructure, healthcare, housing, etc.
End the video.